Hey guys, welcome to another In Conversation. We're sitting here in Switzerland actually. We've taken the opportunity to bring in another external guest. That's Paul Byrne. Paul is a principal at the Leadership Circle Group, so many of you will have connected with his work and insights around the Leadership Circle profile, and Paul's been very helpful to me on my leadership journey. So Paul, it's an absolute pleasure having you here and really appreciated you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure. We were actually just talking about this before we were filming, but this idea, and it's very understood in sport, actually, in competitive sport, is this polarity between performance and recovery. And so, part of what often happens with leaders who have that, frankly, that gift that gets overextended a bit, is that there is this sort of over-indexing to performance, sort of every day is game day, right? As opposed to what we know in all other kind of competitive or high-performance endeavors, whether it's music or theater or sport, is you need a combination between there are times to perform, there are times to practice, and there are times to recover.
Right.
And so one of the things I'm curious about is how have you begun to think about that polarity of we absolutely need to raise the bar, the impact that we can have is exponential given the work that we do, and it's a human system.
Yes.
And we need to recognize that, particularly coming out of, frankly, several years where there was a lot of expectation and need to perform.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you find that new balance?
I'd love to say that I've got the answer, but it's a conversation we're having for a start. And as recently as this morning in our APAC enabling team discussion this morning, we talked about the load that's on everybody in our organizations because, as you rightly point out, we moved into a different cadence or rhythm of high intensity during COVID, which was fueled by all of a sudden our role at the center of the world in stopping this global pandemic that was going on. And so purpose drove our teams and ourselves unbelievably strongly. And we just kept going. And it was an extraordinarily long period of time. I think we're aware that a lot of that is carried over. So we were in the performance mode for, you could argue, 3 years right across the organization. And the feedback we're getting, not just from the teams, but also from my leaders, is we have so much on our plate. And one of the elements that we're thinking about, and in some cases starting to explore, is the role of collective leadership in sharing that load. And that can be applied all the way through organizations, I think, right? Is to say, how do we make sure that we're always building the people in the system such that when one level is overloaded, others can come up and take the load. One of the things was, I think you're aware of, Paul, we have our APAC spirit elements that describe us as a region and the style of people that we aim to be, and it's a very human set of dynamic. And the one I personally put at the heart of that is become a better version of ourselves. I did a lot anchor myself back in APAC spirit and go, but hang on a minute, you've made a commitment to your team as an individual to continuously improve. And that's what's written in APAC spirit for all of us, right? And so that's where I sort of kept coming back to, okay, this is hard, this is the tough training, but you've got that commitment to be a better leader. Whatever that looks like, I want to be a better leader for my team tomorrow than what I was yesterday. So that's sort of the thing that sort of kept me driving a little bit forward to kind of break through and then start to become useful again.
And I think for a lot of leaders, there's two pieces of work, right? There's the inner work, but you also got to do the outer work of sort of preparing the field, and helping people understand, listen, I'm working on this. I may not get it right. I want to welcome your feedback, and kind of stick with me on it, because I think there's something here. And my experience is when people understand what you're trying to do and they know you're trying to get better, they'll give you a lot of grace.
We've developed a skill set within Roche, and in APAC it is very much the same as well, around a coaching dynamic. Right, and we have conversations, and there's this question around, maybe I need a leadership coach, right? I want to expand my career and move forward with it. I'll get a leadership coach. I'm sort of interested in unpacking this a little bit to see from your experience. I'm not saying coaches are good or bad. It's just trying to understand that as an external dynamic to somebody's development, when you see that working, when you perhaps see it not working.
If I could encourage one thing for leaders at any level, it's to really work on cultivating a coachable mindset.
Okay.
Right? And there's a couple of things that I think are important in that. And I think our relationship has role modeled a lot of it, which is you're open to feedback, to being better, to getting better.
Yeah.
Right? Part of that is you kind of need to check your ego a little bit, because part of being better means there's more that could be there than is right now. It's not that you're not enough.
Yeah.
There's more you can learn. There's more you can lean into. There's more you can leverage than you may have expected. So I think leaving your ego at the door a bit. This idea that these coachable moments can happen at any moment with any person. Right? I mean, by all means, I'm an advocate for well-trained, experienced coaches in moments where they're really useful. And the greatest lessons that I've learned and the greatest coaching I've received in my life has been from people who wouldn't have described themselves as coaches.
Right.
They just happen to have the right set of advice or reflections at the right moment in my life that really created a crossroads for me.
And as an individual, you're receptive to it. I think that's the thing, right? Does curiosity play a role here as an anchor point as you enter into the world, go to the office every day? If curiosity is an anchoring point to keep an open mindset, is that something that people could think about?
Yeah. You have to be curious about yourself.
Okay.
True. And I think one of the things, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but this idea of really having a sense of, for the sake of what? What's the purpose, right? Because if it's just to get better to win more, I mean, I suppose that's something, but it's unlikely to have the same gravitational kind of pull as actually I want to be better because I think I could be a better leader to my teams.
Yeah.
And through that collective leadership, I think we could have a bigger impact in society and improve health outcomes, or make this a place that seeks diverse perspectives and where everyone feels a sense of belonging. So I think getting that sense of purpose, which you almost need to have in order to check your ego.
Right.
Because it's got to kind of be worth something.
Yes.
Right. Otherwise, it's just, thanks for the feedback. But I think if it's serving something and you're trying to grow into something, that can be really important. So this idea of looking for coachable moments and staying coachable with your peers, with frankly your family. Sometimes your kids can be your greatest coaches.
Tough coaches, actually.
Let me tell you, they're unrelenting, right? But they'll teach you things if you're open to that.
That's really cool.
But if you're not open, you're unlikely to catch it.
Yeah.
And when I think about our interactions, and sometimes they're literally as brief as we'll pass each other in building one for some reason we just happen to. And there's an element of those conversations with you, which is you'll always tell me how you're doing, and you'll always tell me what you're working on, and you'll always ask me, what do you see?
Yeah.
And so when I think of coachable, I mean, you're somebody that comes to mind, but it is that sort of, maybe it's only 3 minutes and we pass each other, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to try and get better.
So that's it, guys. The takeaway from this conversation is, how do we make ourselves coachable? There's the formal coaching mechanism with the people that we have trained across the organization, and the interactions that you have with people every day. So with that, wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.